Most men spend their entire lives trying to figure out what women want, only to keep getting the same result. Ghosted, overlooked, or told, "You're such a nice guy, but..." Here's the uncomfortable truth. What women say they want and what they're actually drawn to are two very different things. They'll never admit it. Not to you, not even to themselves. But once you learn to see beneath the surface, to read between the lines of their actions, not their words, you'll start noticing patterns. You'll begin to understand why the man who ignores her gets chased, why the man who walks away earns respect, and why the man who says less often has more power. This video is not about tricks. It's about how Stoic strength unlocks attraction in a way no charm or pickup line ever could. If you're tired of guessing and ready to understand what really works, subscribe to Stoic Advice for Men right now, because it's time to stop performing and start becoming. But here's where most men go wrong. They listen to what she says instead of watching what she responds to. So today I'm going to walk you through the real patterns behind female attraction, not based on theory, not based on wishful thinking, but on what works, quietly, consistently, without chasing. Let's begin. The first mistake many men make is believing what a woman says, instead of paying attention to what she actually responds to. She might say she wants a nice guy who's always available, emotionally open, and gives her all his attention. And yet, time after time, she chooses the man who's emotionally grounded, slightly mysterious, and never tries to prove it his worth. Why? Because attraction isn't built on logic. It's built on emotional certainty, and women are instinctively drawn to men who don't need them to feel whole. A man who stands still when she tests him, a man who doesn't flinch when she pulls away, a man who doesn't explain himself when he's silent. That's the man her subconscious respects. That's the man she doesn't understand but can't stop thinking about. And that's exactly where Stoic masculinity enters the picture. When you stop reacting, you start observing. When you stop proving, you start attracting. Women crave the presence of a man who is anchored, not someone who's always chasing her energy, but someone who carries his own. If this resonates with you, subscribe to Stoic Advice for Men. This channel isn't here to teach you how to impress her. It's here to help you become the man who doesn't need to. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The man who is always available, always replying fast, always seeking reassurance, he becomes predictable. And in the world of attraction, predictability is the death of desire. See, women don't consciously say, "I want a man who keeps me guessing," but their actions scream it. She checks her phone more often when you don't reply instantly. She replays your words in her head when you say less. She wonders what you're thinking when you're calm in chaos. That wondering? That's where desire lives. But when you pour out your emotions too soon, when you hand over all your intentions on the first few days, you remove the mystery, and with it, the emotional tension that makes her feel something. That's the paradox. The more you try to show her how much you care, the more she feels she's already figured you out. And once there's nothing left to wonder about, she stops chasing. A Stoic man understands this isn't manipulation, it's discipline. It's having enough self-respect to reveal yourself gradually, not out of fear, but out of strength. When you move slowly, when you let her discover you piece by piece, she feels chosen, not overwhelmed. And when she senses you could walk away at any time, her mind attaches more value to your presence. And that's why at Stoic Advice for Men, we don't teach you how to text the perfect message. We teach you how to be the man whose silence says more than words ever could. And here's something most men never realize. You don't become magnetic by chasing her hooker. You become magnetic by chasing something greater than her. A man with a mission radiates a different kind of energy. He walks differently, talks differently, responds differently. He's not available at every moment, not because he's playing games, but because he's busy building something real. Women can feel it. They can sense when your attention is divided between your purpose and her presence. And paradoxically, that's what makes you irresistible. You see, most men make the woman their mission. They drop everything when she calls. They rearrange their lives to accommodate her moods. They place her on a pedestal and then wonder why she starts pulling away. But the man who treats his mission as sacred, who doesn't compromise his vision to win approval, that man becomes a rare breed, a force, an energy she wants to be close to, but can never fully possess. And the truth? She doesn't want to be your everything. She wants to be part of something bigger you're already building. That's why when you wake up driven, when you train your body, sharpen your mind, and stay focused on your goals, you naturally stop obsessing over her. And the moment you do that is usually the moment she starts obsessing over you. So if you've ever felt like you've been too nice, too available, or too focused on her, you're not alone. But it's time to shift that focus back where it belongs, on your discipline, your purpose, your power. Subscribe to Stoic Advice for Men to reconnect with the strength you've been giving away. This channel is your reminder. Your life's mission should never be put on pause for anyone. You ever notice how sometimes, right when things are going to, she suddenly pulls away, or challenges your opinion, or gives you that cold silence just to see how you'll react? That's not random. That's a test, not to manipulate you, but to measure you. Women don't even realize they're doing it most of the time. It's instinct, a subconscious way to ask, can this man hold his ground when I push? And here's the mistake most men make. They react, they defend, they explain, they chase. All that does is show her one thing. You're emotionally dependent in her response. And that's the fastest way to kill her respect. But the Stoic man, he sees the test for what it is, and he stays rooted, calm, unshaken. If she challenges him, he listens, but doesn't beg for approval. If she pulls away, he doesn't chase, he continues with his life. Not to be cold, but to remain in command of himself. Because deep down, what women respect most isn't dominance. It's emotional composure. Not the man who shouts the loudest, but the one who says little and means every word. And that kind of calm, it can't be faked. It's built in silence, in failure, in rejection, in those moments where you want to break, but don't. And that's why Stoic Advice for Men isn't just about dating. It's about who you become when no one's watching. If you want her to stop testing you, become the man who doesn't flinch, no matter what she throws your way. There's one moment that defines a man's power more than any other. The moment he's willing to walk away. Not out of anger, not out of pride, but out of unshakable self-respect. Most men panic when they sense a woman slipping away. They chase harder, they explain more, they try to fix what's not theirs to fix, and without knowing it, they shift the balance. They tell her, I need you more than you need me. And in that moment, the attraction begins to fade. But a man who walks away when he's being disrespected, a man who doesn't tolerate games, emotional manipulation, or breadcrumbs, that man becomes unforgettable. Because now he's not just another guy, he's the standard. Women don't obsess over the man who begged to stay. They obsess over the one who left with dignity and never looked back. You see, walking away isn't about punishing her. It's about protecting your peace. It's a silent declaration, I won't lose myself just to keep you. And that silence, that stillness, that absence, it echoes louder than any argument ever could. A Stoic man never clings. He connects, but never chases. He feels, but never folds. And that's why he's respected, even long after he's gone. If you've ever struggled to let go when you knew you should, if you've ever stayed too long, hoping she'd finally see your worth, then it's time to rebuild that strength. Subscribe to Stoic Advice for Men, because sometimes the most attractive thing you can do is walk away with your head high. The most powerful man in the room isn't the loudest. He's not the one with the most money, or the flashiest car, or the biggest following. He's the one who can say no, even to the things most men chase blindly, especially desire. Most men are ruled by it. They follow it like a mushk on a leash, scrolling, swiping, chasing. They let lust lead them straight into weakness. And in doing so, they become predictable, easily manipulated, easy to forget. But a man who masters his desire, he's something rare. He doesn't chase beauty, he recognizes it, but stays centered. He doesn't let his urges speak louder than his discipline. And that's what makes women notice. Not because he plays hard to get, but because he is hard to get. She can sense it. He doesn't need her validation. He doesn't crave attention. He isn't addicted to approval. His hunger is aimed higher toward purpose, creation, legacy. You see, when a man resists the pull of fleeting pleasure, he becomes magnetic, grounded, unshakable. He doesn't flinch under temptation. He chooses with clarity. And in that stillness, he becomes unforgettable. A woman may enjoy the man who gives in quickly, but she respects the man who doesn't. At Stoic Advice for Men, this is the foundation: self-control over self-indulgence, discipline over distraction, purpose over pleasure. If you want to lead, not follow your own desires, you know what to do. Hit subscribe, reclaim your energy, and become the kind of man who doesn't chase anything because he attracts everything. There's a reason she can't stop thinking about him. Not because he was the most charming or the best looking or the most available, but because she never quite figured him out. Mystery is magnetic. It creates emotional tension, the kind that keeps her coming back to the same conversation in her head, replaying his words, decoding his silence, wondering what he's really thinking. But most men ruin this without knowing. They overshare too soon. They confess feelings after the second date. They reply instantly, explain everything, ask where this is going far too early. And what happens next? The chase dies, because the mystery is gone. A Stoic man, on the other hand, lives by a different rhythm. He doesn't rush connection. He reveals himself piece by piece. He listens more than he talks. And when he speaks, every word lands with weight. He doesn't text back immediately, not out of strategy, but because his time is real. He doesn't post every thought online because his life isn't a performance. He's intentional, reserved, grounded. And that restraint, that inner calm, it drives her crazy in the best way, because women are drawn to what they can't fully grasp. And a man who keeps a part of himself just out of reach keeps her imagination fully engaged. At Stoic Advice for Men, we don't teach you to ghost or play games. We teach you how to live so fully within yourself that curiosity finds you naturally. If you want her to lean in, to wonder, to keep coming back, become the man who doesn't overshare. Become the man she wants to figure out, but never fully can. There's a kind of man who enters a room and doesn't need to say a word. People feel him. They make space for him. Not because he demands attention, but because his presence commands it. This isn't about height, muscle, or clothes. It's about energy, posture, pace, a calm, grounded stillness that says, I know who I am and I don't need you to validate it. That's real attraction, not the man trying to prove himself, but the man who's already chosen himself. You can feel it in how he walks, never rushed, how he stands, relaxed but not sloppy, how he holds eye contact, not aggressively but with quiet steadiness, and how he speaks, low, deliberate, as if every word has been tested by fire. Most men try to fill space with noise, jokes, volume, but a Stoic man, he fills the room with weight, because he doesn't talk to impress, he talks when it matters. And that's why when he does speak, everyone listens. Presence is built, not gifted. It comes from years of discipline, integrity, and facing your demons in silence. And women, they pick up on it instantly. They know when a man is centered versus when he's pretending to be. The presence of a grounded man doesn't just attract, it soothes. It gives her something rare in a world full of noise: emotional safety. At Stoic Advice for Men, we teach you how to build that energy from the inside out. Not for approval, but for power. Not to be loud, but to be felt. If you're ready to stop performing and start embodying, subscribe now. The world doesn't need another entertainer. It needs more men who move with quiet certainty. There's a dangerous myth floating around modern masculinity, that in order to connect with a woman, you must constantly express every emotion. Be open, be vulnerable, be soft. But here's the truth. Vulnerability isn't attractive when it's uncontrolled. It only becomes powerful when it's anchored in strength. Most men misunderstand this. They think sharing every fear, every insecurity, every emotional dip will build trust. But what it often creates is pressure. pressure on her to fix you, pressure to carry your emotional weight, and pressure over time turns attraction into exhaustion. But a man who opens up slowly, a man who reveals his past not to seek pity, but to show growth, a man who shares his scars, not his wounds, he becomes captivating. Because now when he does open up, it means something. It wasn't out of impulse, it was a conscious choice. And that choice makes her feel trusted, not burdened. A Stoic man doesn't hide his emotions. He just doesn't let them lead. He feels deeply but shares intentionally. He can admit he's been through hell, but he doesn't need saving. And women, they don't want a man who bleeds in their hands. They want a man who's healed enough to hold space for both their truths. True vulnerability isn't about dumping pain. It's about containing truth with calm power. And when you speak from that place, not seeking validation, but simply offering presence, she listens differently. Because now she knows she's hearing the voice of a man who's faced himself and survived. At some point, every man must face the truth. You never win by trying to be wanted. The more you try to be enough for her, the less you feel enough for yourself. The more you perform, the more you lose your presence. The more you chase, the more she pulls away. But when you stop trying to earn her affection, when you stop orbiting around her validation, something powerful happens. You come home to yourself. You no longer wake up wondering if she's still into you. You no longer second guess every text, every pause in the conversation, every mood shift. Because now your peace doesn't depend on her response, it depends on your alignment. And strangely enough, that's when the game flips. She feels it. She senses you're no longer asking, "Am I good enough for her?" Instead, you're quietly evaluating, is she aligned with the life I'm building? That shift is everything. It's the difference between being tolerated and being respected, between being her emotional crutch and being her standard, between being the man she dates and the one she can't replace. Because now you're not coming from lack, you're coming from fullness. You're not looking for someone to complete you, you're inviting someone to join you. And that energy can't be faked. It doesn't come from reading scripts or playing tactics. It comes from knowing who you are and refusing to shrink for anyone. You're no longer trying to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself. And in a world full of noise, distraction, and performance, that kind of stillness is magnetic. Not because it seeks to attract, but because it doesn't need to.